Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and everything in between, another video about another bicycle. But I think this will be a video about more than a bicycle. This is going to be me moaning a lot, I think. I haven't made any notes on doing this. Can I call it open mic? This is a somewhat impromptu video. I had no intention of doing this video, to be honest with you. At least not right now. But here we are. I've got no idea how long this video is going to take. But as I say, it's not just about a bicycle, I don't think. Although this video, my motivation for doing this video is this bicycle, I guess. But I'm going to go all over the place. I've been alive now for 5 decades. And over that time, you learn a lot. Okay, you don't learn anything at school. School is irrelevance. As soon as you leave school, that's when the learning begins. With 5 decades of life experience under my belt, I can tell you that I have learnt many things. And as someone who's probably made more mistakes in his life than most people, I think I'm wiser because of it. You only learn through your mistakes. And I think one of the things I've learnt certainly is, well, it's a colloquial expression. If you lose your temper, count to 10. And these, colloquial expressions are expressions because they often make sense. But I've added a bit to that. I've gone a few steps further. If you're still annoyed after 10 seconds, give it 10 minutes. If you're still annoyed after 10 minutes, give it 10 hours. And that has pretty much stood me in good stead for the last 10 or 20 years. But you know what? Some rules are meant to be broken, aren't they? Some things just need to be said. And I shouldn't really say that, my field being compliance. I shouldn't really say that at all, but hell, I've said it. I can put my money where my mouth is. Beautiful, isn't it, by the way? This bicycle that you're looking at? Beautiful. Pashley-Morgan 110. But before we start talking about this bicycle, maybe I'm going to start talking about the Chinese. And the appalling conduct of the Chinese, certainly over the past 6, 7, 8 months or so, when it comes to the coronavirus. Hundreds of thousands dead. Not a nice way to die, apparently, the coronavirus, once it takes hold. But of course, governments don't tell us the truth. We all know this, I think. If governments were honest, they'd probably implicate themselves even further as to their incompetence. But clearly, 600,000-700,000 people dead globally. Livelihoods lost. But certainly, when I talk about the numbers, I understand the numbers, but I don't really comprehend what I'm saying. I can picture in my mind all the zeros, but I can't really comprehend in terms of the qualitative aspect of that figure, 600,000-700,000 people dead of COVID-19. I am not capable, as a selfish human being, to understand the loss, the suffering. I cannot compute. The computer says no. I understand the numbers, but I do not really empathise. I am not capable of it on such a vast, enormous scale. And of course, these numbers are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, aren't they? Of course, we talk about livelihoods lost. We're in the beginning, I guess, of a global depression right now. Jobless figures, individual tax burdens are going to go through the roof, of course. All because of COVID-19, and it's originating in the city of Wuhan, a place that none of us had really heard of just 7 or 8 months ago. But it's not just the appalling conduct of the Chinese and the fact that there was a cover-up and there was no honesty and governments didn't react in time. It's not just that element of the Chinese conduct that I have an issue with. It's other matters, certainly in the last 6 months again. We've got Huawei, or however you pronounce that name, the IT company, where, I say we, the UK government is thinking seriously now about having Huawei, or however you pronounce it, I'm sorry, I'm probably not saying that right, but we're thinking about binning them from the UK's 5G communications network. And Mr. Boris Johnson would be an absolute moron if he were not to kick them out. And of course, there's been the appalling international breach of international agreements by the Chinese when it comes to Hong Kong. And it's because of our responses that there has been open threat now made to the UK by the Chinese. Threats of retaliation if we do not allow Huawei access to our 5G comms network. So it's appalling conduct, isn't it? The Chinese, of course, global expansionism, military incursions into Indian-controlled territory, resulting in deaths of Indian military personnel. TikTok, of course, all Chinese-owned, being binned by, various countries around the world. It's just really quite appalling how the Chinese are allowed to conduct themselves. And of course, us in the West, we're a bunch of narcissists. We don't care as long as we've got our consumer freedoms. We don't care where it comes from as long as we buy, because buying defines us, of course, in the West. And here we have a typical example, of course. But long before, and I can say this with some integrity, long before the Chinese conduct came into question in the last 6, 7, 8 months, I have genuinely, and this is demonstrable from my perspective, I have genuinely tried to invest in British manufacturing. When it comes to cycling, for example, I can say that I tried to invest heavily in Halfords and the Boardman bicycle brand. I ended up buying 2 Boardman bicycles. And if you want to know how that ended up, I'll put a hyperlink in the description to my other video. Both bikes designed in the UK apparently, but unfortunately made in China. Appalling manufacturing defects, and the road bicycle that I bought, the carbon bicycle, the Boardman bike from Halfords, well, I'm lucky to still be alive. So you will do yourself a favour if you go and watch that video. I've also bought Brompton bicycles, of course, designed and built in the UK. Steel bicycles, lovely bicycles. Bought one for the wife, one for me. Really nice bicycle, actually. No issues with it. But we bought the nickel-plated edition. We ended up blinging it up, gum wall tyres, so on and so forth. I'll try and put some images in this video if I remember. But when we bought the Brompton bicycle, actually, it came, if you're familiar with the bike, it came with the gear levers, which were mounted on top of the handlebars, but within 6 months they released the new gears, which were almost trigger fire gears below the handlebar. And we thought, oh great, we've heard some good reviews, we'll upgrade our 2 Bromptons. So we took our bikes to the local bike shop, upgraded the gears, took them for a test ride, and we both ended up with cramp. The ergonomics using those gear levers were absolutely abysmal. So we ended up selling the Bromptons because we fell out of love with them as a result of that, unfortunately. I've also recently owned a spin ride full gas spin bicycle, again made, or I would say not made, but designed in the UK, Stratford-upon-Avon. Identical to the Pashley here. And I'm having to film this on wide angle because my phone doesn't do a very good job in standard mode. But the spin bicycle, I don't know if you can read that that badge there, the emblem. This bicycle is also made in Stratford-upon-Avon, like the spin road bike. So my spin road bike was beautiful. Again, I'll shove some images up on screen if I can remember. Beautiful, beautiful bicycle. Really, really nice, high quality bicycle. Unfortunately made in China, but no issues with the bicycle. What I will say is, as a road cyclist of a number of years, generally I do about 4,000 miles a year, being a fairly busy chap, what with my career and getting back, the older you get, the less energy you've got, getting back sometimes, having done a long day, travelling up and down the motorway, so on and so forth. I think I used the spin in the last 12 months only once or twice. So I ended up selling my road bike, and I started to use, I also had at the same time, a Cirrus commuter, Cirrus hybrid, specialised. Really nice bicycle. Heavy wheels, unfortunately, but again, I blinged her up, and she was a really nice bike. But so I started to use the hybrid a lot more often. And if you're a road cyclist, you pretty much know what I'm talking about. It's a time management exercise, isn't it, when you have a road bike? You know, you need to spend a fair amount of time making sure that your GPS is fired up, your camera's fired up. If you've got latex tubes that never hold the pressure, you need to blow your tyres up. Make sure your lycra's clean, and you know your symptom, your heart rate monitors are fired up, and it's an exercise in time management. And I never really had the time in the last 12 months. But when it comes to a commuter bicycle, of course, you can go for a ride in pretty much what you're wearing. The only thing you need to consider is putting your helmet on and a pair of cycling mitts, and off you go. And I fell in love with commuting. I used to use my Cirrus to cycle to work and back, but ever since changing my employer, I didn't really do that much. But so when I jumped back on the Cirrus and I started to use it to go on, you know, weekend jollies through the countryside, I fell in love with it. You really do enjoy the ride a lot more. It's an upright position, it's a damn sight more comfortable, and I fell in love with it. And I sold my road bike, and when I saw this on the Pashley website, well, aesthetically, it's beautiful, isn't it? Look at it. Again, apologies if this isn't too level. I'm trying to do this on my not very smartphone, but this is aesthetically an absolutely wonderful, wonderful bicycle. Of course, the bicycle was invented over 200 years ago, but when we talk about the triangles, what we call the modern safety bicycle, I think that was invented in about 1870, 1875, 76. So this bicycle has been around for 150 odd years, or the concept, if you will, of the three triangles and wheels attached to it. So it's not exactly modern technology, is it? But this Pashley-Morgan is a sort of a strange synergy. You've got wonderful traditional lines and geometry. Certainly, it resembles a 1950s bicycle, you know. But the titular Pashley-Morgan 110 comes from the fact that this is a collaboration between the Morgan Motor Company, celebrating its 110 years, and the Pashley bicycle, two British, or English I guess you would say, two English manufacturing icons, you know. So, and indeed it was Morgan that initiated the collaboration between these two people, or between these two organisations. And it's lovely, I think, you know, when, as a consumer with integrity, as I say, when I saw this bicycle, I want to invest in British. I want to invest in domestic manufacture. And when something as beautiful as this, you know, pops up on the screen and you think, wow, that's beautiful. Well, I was sold, you know, made in the UK, no Chinese contribution, I'm all for it. And I parted with my, wait for it, bearing in mind this is a fairly standard hybrid bicycle. I parted with my £1,850. I know, but I parted with it willingly, because this is, in my eyes, the most beautiful bicycle I've ever owned. And I think it's fair to say that over the last 10 years, I think I've probably spent upwards of £25,000 on bicycles and bits associated with bicycles and so on and so forth. So it's fair to say I've got a lot of experience when it comes to cycling. And I'm sorry to repeat myself, but if I can own something as beautiful as this, made in England, you know, the British flag there, wow, why shouldn't I? But anyway, I'm bouncing all over the place. Titular Pashley-Morgan 110, 110 years of the Morgan Motor Company car. I think it was founded in 1923, still going well. If I had the money, I wouldn't buy a Porsche, I wouldn't buy a Ferrari or a Lambo. I would certainly buy a Morgan motor car. Beautiful, beautiful things. But to sort of reflect the 110 years, we have here a Shimano Dior 1x10 group set. Okay, so there's the 110 right there. Moving up the bicycle, take you to the top cap, in the cockpit. Beautiful, isn't it? Look at that. It's a speedometer, of course, and this is model number 19, and there's only 110 of these bicycles being made. So not only limited edition, very limited edition, all right? Only 110 being made. Coral, stainless steel water bottle, thermos. Well, actually, I think thermos is a trade name, isn't it? So it's a flask, but it's insulated, so it keeps hot drinks hot, cold drinks cold. Wonderful, wonderful, beautiful bottle. I love the fact that when you need a drink, you've got to take your time to stop, unscrew the top cap, and take a swig. But aesthetically, I love this. It's, wow, quite heavy, but my God, it's beautiful. Again, this is goes back to the 1950s, I think, 1960s. You know, the Tour de France, they used things like this very often with cork stoppers, with holes for straws, I think, back in the day. And these were very often mounted to the top of your road bikes, you know, 70 odd or so years ago. But again, it just fits, doesn't it? Aesthetically, just fits with the bicycle. Brooks, of course, made just up the road in Birmingham. A Brooks cadmium here, vulcanised rubber saddle. I've owned a number of Brooks saddles over the years. Absolutely beautiful. I've owned B17s, titanium rails, you name it, I've owned them. Never owned a cadmium before. No issues. Beautiful, beautiful saddle. Don't have to break it in. Weatherproof. I would certainly buy one going forwards. Panaracer rubber. Balloon-esque, I would say. I don't know the specific girth of the tyre, but, you know, it's a sizable girth. The rims are incredibly lightweight. I don't know if they're Panaracer rims or whatever, but the bicycle comes with very light wheels, so this bicycle moves at a rate of knots. Wonderful, wonderful comfort when you ride the bicycle. Very upright position, slightly leaning forward. It's not a sit up and beg style, but you know, it's a beautifully relaxed riding position. Comes complete with ding dong bell, and I've got to do that again. You know, wonderful tradition. And I think, is it just me getting old? But I think, you know, I never used to appreciate things like this on a bike, but you know, as you get older, I think you look back with rose-tinted specs and, my God, if this is how bikes can look based on an old design, my God, you can bin all the carbon fibre in my eyes. The reason this bicycle is so expensive, or one of the reasons, of course, made in the UK, beautiful, but the steel tubing, it's Reynolds 725, don't know if you can see that, ooh, there you go. So, quite a soft steel. It's a beautiful, beautiful finish. The connections are beautifully welded. And again, the hollow through front end fork. It's just, aesthetically for me, this bicycle is just, it's it. And I'll finish off the tour of the bicycle by showing you these handlebar grips here. I've owned Brooks handlebar grips before. Not to say that these are Brooks, because they're not. But I've owned leather handlebar grips before, investing in, as I say, where I can, English manufacturing. But the handlebar grips I had from Brooks were abysmal. Perfectly well designed, perfectly well made and manufactured, but it was like riding your bicycle on bare metal. They provided no comfort whatsoever. Aesthetically very pleasing, you know, beautiful to look at, of course, but no comfort. These are quite long, actually, I would say. I reckon a good 5 inches maybe. But these are also hand-stitched leather grips. I'll try and point you towards the stitching, probably won't show on the camera. But these are padded. The most comfortable handlebar grips I have ever owned on any bicycle, alright? These are wonderful. It's a pity you can't buy these separately, actually. You know, hydraulic disc brakes, angular hub style there. It's a top-end bicycle, isn't it? And you pay a premium for it. And it's been a nightmare. My God, it's been a nightmare. Don't know if you're expecting me to say that, but I wanted this bicycle review to be a 5-star glowing reference to English manufacturing, but this bicycle's been a bloody nightmare. I've been out on this bicycle about 10 times. I've owned it for about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, I don't know. Not long. I've only been out on it 10 times. After about 70 miles, a significant issue developed, all right? And again, I've got terrible memories of my first video, my first video all about, Halfords and Boardman and how that appalling combination of companies nearly cost me my life. My heart was broken. I was out on a ride and an appalling fault developed. Don't know what it was. I thought the bottom bracket had gone, actually. But there was the guy at the shop, actually, when I took it back, he described it as a frog croaking, Around this sort of area, I would say, could have been the rear hub. He thought it was the wheel that was actually faulty, but the long and short of it, there was a design fault. All right, there was a design fault with the bicycle. The guy actually back at the shop, nice chap, down in Stratford-upon-Avon, he swapped out the rear wheel. He thought it was the rear hub. Didn't think it was the crank. He had a look at it. It was sorted. But when he replaced the rear wheel, the horrible groaning, croaking noise was still there. So the lead engineer at Pashley came out and had a look. And he did, or the shop guy did explain what the issue was, but if you can see the chainstay here, they're now pinched, all right? But before, when I picked the bicycle up, these weren't pinched, and there was something wrong with the design here. And after about 70 miles, something started to fail, something started to rub. I think there was a clearance issue, the mud guards or some such, but it felt like it was, it sounded horrible. So they've retro design or, design engineered a fix whereby they've took it back to the factory and they've pinched the tubing here. So presumably they would have had to have done a recall. As I say, this is number 19 of 110. They haven't sold out of the range yet, so they would have done a recall, I'm presuming. And obviously, I lost the bike for 2 or 3 weeks while they fixed it, but I was delighted when I had it back. And off I went on my next jolly, and I was very, very happy, at which point I was in the middle of the countryside, and I lost the gears. So my next ride, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, my apologies if you can't, but this is where the gear cable pops through. Someone obviously hadn't tightened up this Allen key screw here, and the cable popped through and I lost all my gears. Luckily for me, I actually had a multi-tool with me at the time, so I managed to try and pull it through as best I can with a pair of pliers and put the tension back in. I know a bit about basic mechanics, so I've managed to reconfigure the gears to a degree, got myself home. But that was disappointing. I lost the gears at the bottom of a steep hill. No pressure did I apply to the pedals at the time. I was just changing gear, doing about 10 miles an hour, and the gear cable pulled through. So that was disappointing as well. But I fixed it myself. These things do happen. I don't know why they happen. As I say, this bicycle, the design of a bicycle isn't exactly cutting edge technology. But there you go, that was the second issue. 2 rides later. As I say, I repeat, I've only ridden this bicycle 10 times. I think I've done about 130 miles on her. My last ride was 2 days ago. 25 miles away from home. And I can't do it one-handed because I'm trying to hold the phone with the other hand. But unfortunately, 20 miles away from home, middle of the countryside, a glorious English summer day, 2 mile an hour, wind speed, 20 degrees, hundreds of cyclists out and about, people walking through the countryside, and my goddamn bottom bracket failed. This now spins with a horrible grinding noise. If I were to rotate it, it would spin freely. The bottom bracket's gone. And I am so conflicted. I've got a lump in the throat. I am so utterly dejected and disappointed that this is the 3rd failure in 10 or 11 rides. It's completely unacceptable, isn't it? I don't know what you guys think, and if this video is getting any views or not, I don't know. But GB. Why can't consumers invest and have faith and confidence in British manufacturing? Why on earth? There's a synergy between 2 amazing English design and manufacturing icons. Why can that synergy not design and develop and produce a bicycle that is reliable? What's wrong with the industry? I am desperate to invest in UK, in Britain, in Scotland, in Wales. I want to invest in British manufacturing, and you know, nothing would give me greater happiness than riding this bicycle for the next 10 years. But given the issues I've had with other bicycles, and again I harken back to my issues with Boardman and Halfords and the fact that I had to take them to court twice, you know, as a cyclist, if you know cycling, if you consider yourself a cyclist, then you know you have to have faith and confidence in your steed. I've been I'm regularly going 29, 30 miles an hour on this. I've done 36 miles an hour on this bicycle. But what's going to fail next? Is the hub going to fail at nearly 40 miles an hour? Is the headset going to fail at 37, 40 odd miles an hour? If I fall off at that speed, I'll be in trouble, I can tell you. It's just not worth it. I don't have any confidence in this bicycle. If I take it back to the shop and it's fixed, as I say, you know, the next time I'm out wanting to enjoy myself away from work, getting some peace and R&R, I won't have confidence that something else isn't going to break. So I'm going to take this bicycle back to the shop tomorrow, and I'm going to get my money back due to a breach of my consumer rights. This item does not have sufficient quality. What I've done instead is I've contacted a company called Canyon. I've given up trying to invest in UK now. I've tried as a consumer who wants to demonstrate integrity, but I've pretty much given up, and I'm now purchasing a Canyon Commuter 6.0. It's a 1600 quid bike, so it's a couple of £100 cheaper than this, but it comes with a belt drive, a Carbon Gates belt drive, Alpine 11-speed integrated hub, carbon forks, panniers. You know, it's a pretty nice piece of kit, even if I say so myself. And I'll see how I get on with the Canyon. You know, I treat my bikes with TLC. I love my bicycling. And every time I've been out on this 10 times, I've washed it 10 times. Well, not quite, actually, that's a lie. Probably washed it 4 times. But, you know, for me, aesthetically, when you finish cycling, you wash your bike, bring it back into the home. It's nice just walking past it. Visually appreciating the lines, the geometry, the angles, the aesthetics of it all. You know, I really do like my cycling. I always look after my bicycles, always, because we have to trust them, don't we? But we'll see how we get on with the Canyon. So keep your eyes peeled, there'll be a video review in the next month or two. But that is my review of the Pashley-Morgan 110. A disappointing experience, and I cannot recommend this bicycle as a result. Alright, goodbye.